He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the dim glow of the hallway light seeping through the crack in the door. His wife lay beside him, her breathing slow and even. The same rhythm he used to match when their bodies fit together, like pieces of the same worn puzzle. He didn't want to wake her, didn't want to disturb the peace. But inside, something was aching. Not the sharp stab of pain, but a dull, persistent weight that pressed against his ribs and stayed there. It wasn't just about sex. That's what people misunderstand. It was the feeling of closeness, the warmth that used to come so easily with a glance or a touch. Now, the space between them, though barely a foot wide, felt like a mile, and he couldn't figure out when that distance had crept in. Was it after the knee surgery? When he started getting winded climbing stairs? Or maybe the night he reached for her and couldn't follow through? This isn't an uncommon story. In fact, if you're a man over 60, you might be living some version of it right now. The slow fade of energy, the shift from feeling like a husband to feeling like a ghost in your own home, the confusion, the embarrassment, and the quiet question you carry alone. What's happening to me? My name is Dr. Michael Hanks. I've spent over 30 years sitting across from men who once stood tall in steel-toed boots or behind office desks, who served their countries, built their families, and now find themselves staring down a new kind of battle, the one with their own bodies. And I want to tell you something, man to man. You're not losing your manhood. You're losing blood flow. That might sound too simple, but hear me out. Our bodies, especially as we age, are powered by circulation. Every cell, every nerve, every function you once took for granted is dependent on your blood moving freely, efficiently, and with purpose. And when that begins to slow or get blocked entirely, the effects ripple through every part of your life, including your ability to connect intimately with someone you love. I've seen men spend thousands on supplements, hide prescriptions in glove compartments, or retreat into silence because they didn't understand what was really happening inside them. But sometimes, restoring that connection, reclaiming your vitality, starts with something as humble as what's on your plate. Today, I want to walk with you through 4 powerful natural foods that support circulation and revive the spark of intimacy. These aren't gimmicks. They're backed by research. And more importantly, they're grounded in the lived experience of men who've quietly figured out what works. Let me start with the most surprising of them all, beets. I know, they're not exactly the stuff of steamy romance. Most guys either pass them by in the produce aisle or remember them as the mushy, pickled things their mothers used to slap onto dinner plates. But inside this crimson root is something your blood vessels are practically begging for: nitrates. When you eat beets, those nitrates convert into nitric oxide, a compound that helps relax and widen your blood vessels. That means better circulation, lower blood pressure, and improved blood delivery to the places where it really matters. One man I worked with, Henry, 68, had been avoiding conversations about intimacy with his wife for months. "Doc," he told me, "it's not that I'm not interested. It's that my body isn't listening. We started simple. I suggested he start juicing beets, just a small glass in the morning." Within a few weeks, he came back, leaned over my desk, and said with a grin, "I'm not running marathons, but I walked the whole golf course last Sunday. And more importantly, my wife noticed." There was pride in his voice, but also relief. A piece of himself had returned. What most people miss is that the ability to get and maintain an erection isn't just a function of testosterone or arousal. It's a vascular event. Your arteries and capillaries have to open wide enough and long enough to sustain the moment. If your blood flow is compromised, even slightly, you feel it. Not just in your performance, but in your sense of self. I remember a man named Raymond, 72 years old, retired carpenter, hands still calloused from decades of honest work. He came to see me not because he was in pain, but because he was disappearing, or at least that's how he described it. "Doc," he said, his voice low and steady, "I feel like a photograph left out in the sun, faded, washed out." He wasn't being dramatic. He was telling the truth the way men like him often do. Plain spoken, without complaint, but deeply aware that something important was slipping away. He told me he still loved his wife, still thought she was beautiful, still felt drawn to her in quiet moments. But when he reached for her, his body didn't follow. Not like it used to. There were no more spontaneous touches in the hallway, no more moments in bed when their bodies spoke before words did. He missed that connection. Not just the physical act, but the sense of being wanted, of wanting. And when the morning erections began to disappear, those subtle, almost subconscious signs of male vitality, he felt something inside him go quiet. That quietness, I found, is one of the hardest parts for men. It's not always the loss of performance that cuts deepest. It's the loss of response, the lack of signal, the silence where there used to be instinct. And while it might sound small, a fading morning erection can feel like a curtain slowly drawing closed on a stage you once owned with confidence. I sat with Raymond for a long time that day. We talked about his history, his habits, his health markers. His blood pressure was slightly elevated, his cholesterol a bit high. Nothing alarming, but enough to constrict the tiny capillaries and blood vessels that feed sensitive tissue, the kind that depends on strong elastic arteries to fill and respond. He didn't know that what he was feeling wasn't a failure of desire, but a slowdown in circulation. I explained how nitric oxide, a molecule his body produces less of with age, plays a critical role in relaxing those vessels and allowing blood to flow into the penis. Without it, even a strong emotional connection or mental arousal can be met with physical stillness. What most men don't realize is that those small, seemingly forgettable biological processes, things like endothelial health or nitric oxide synthesis, are actually the foundations of connection. When you lose them, the body doesn't just falter, it forgets how to respond to love. We talked about diet, exercise, stress, but we also talked about loneliness. Because buried under the science, there's something deeper, the grief of disconnection. Raymond admitted something that stayed with me for a long time. He said, "She hasn't asked, but I think she knows. And I think it hurts her that I don't try anymore." But it's not that I don't want to. It's that I'm afraid I'll fail. That fear of disappointment, of embarrassment, of confirming some unspoken decline is what keeps so many men from seeking help. They don't want to talk about it because talking about it makes it real. And yet, silence is what allows the drift to widen. So we started simple. I recommended small, consistent changes. Nitrate-rich foods, daily walks, better sleep hygiene, breathing exercises to support nitric oxide production. But I also gave him something else. Permission. Permission to talk to his wife. To tell her what was happening. To invite her in, instead of pushing her away in quiet shame. A month later, he returned with his shoulders a little straighter. "We had a conversation," he said. "Not about fixing it, just about what it's been like for both of us." There was no miracle, no overnight transformation, but that one talk softened something between them. They started holding hands again. He started initiating more, even if it didn't lead anywhere. And one morning, 3 or 4 weeks into his new routine, he woke up with an erection. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't full, but it was there. And more than that, it was his. A signal from the body that it remembered, that it still carried the blueprint of connection. That moment meant more to him than any medication could have, because it came from within. A quiet victory, a return. This is what I wish more men understood, that these losses we feel are not final. That the body, though older, is not beyond restoration. It is patient, responsive, even hopeful, if you give it the conditions it needs to remember. The penis, in many ways, is the canary in the coal mine, one of the first places where poor circulation shows itself. It is not a moral failure or a sign of weakness. It's a physiological alarm bell. Erectile changes can precede cardiovascular events by years. That fading morning erection isn't just about sex. It's about your heart, your blood vessels, your long-term health. And yet, because it carries emotional weight, it often gets hidden, ignored, or quietly mourned without ever being addressed. But what if we treated it differently? What if instead of shame, we brought curiosity? What if we allowed those signs to guide us back? Not just toward sexual health, but toward total well-being? Raymond's story isn't unique. It's the story of many men I've treated. And perhaps, in some way, it's yours too. That sense of something slipping. Not loudly, but slowly, subtly, until one day you wake up and realize you're living in a body you don't quite recognize. But even then, it's not too late. The truth is, intimacy, real intimacy, isn't dependent on flawless performance. It's rooted in presence, vulnerability, and connection. When your body begins to heal, when blood starts flowing again, when you feel even the smallest flicker of responsiveness return, it does something to your spirit. It reminds you that you're still capable, still here, still a man in every sense that matters. So if you're watching this and you've been wondering whether your quiet struggles mean something deeper, the answer is yes, they do. But that doesn't mean the story ends here. It means this is the turning point. Your body is listening, and it's capable of change, of recovery, of return. And so are you. Beets help restore that flow. Not overnight, not with fireworks, but gradually, dependably, like a river clearing its own path again after a long drought. And while we're on the topic of deep red foods, let's talk about pomegranates. There's a reason this fruit has been considered a symbol of vitality since ancient times. It's rich, tangy, and packed with powerful antioxidants, particularly punicolagon, which have been shown to reduce oxidative stress and improve blood vessel function. But it does more than that. Pomegranate juice has been linked to modest increases in testosterone levels and improvements in erectile response, especially in men dealing with mild to moderate dysfunction. I had one patient, 63, recently retired, who came in more out of frustration than hope. "I thought this part of my life was over," he said, "but I still want to feel connected. I still want to feel alive." He started incorporating pomegranate juice into his daily routine. No pills, no promises, just a glass each evening. After a month, he told me, "I can feel the difference. Not just in the bedroom, but in how I show up. I feel more present, less foggy, more like myself." What's happening here isn't magic. It's biology. The polyphenols in pomegranates help clean up the microdamage inside your arteries. They support the production of nitric oxide and help lower inflammation, making it easier for your heart to pump blood and your vessels to respond. And what's more intimate than showing up fully mind and body for someone you love? Now, I want you to picture something warmer, something that might surprise you. Chili peppers. That's right. Technically, a fruit, and one of the most circulation-supportive foods on the planet. The heat you feel when you bite into a pepper comes from a compound called capsaicin. What capsaicin does inside your body is open up your blood vessels and improve blood flow. It also stimulates the release of endorphins, your natural feel-good chemicals, and even supports a slight uptick in metabolism. For centuries, traditional medicine systems have used chili to wake up the blood, but there's more to it than folklore. Modern research supports its ability to lower blood pressure, improve vascular tone, and enhance sensory responsiveness. Yes, even the kind that matters behind closed doors. I remember visiting an older gentleman in New Mexico. He'd lost his wife 5 years earlier, but still cooked every evening like she was coming home. "She liked it spicy," he said, stirring a pot of stew laced with cayenne and garlic. "Said it kept us young." He chuckled, but there was truth in it. That heat, that willingness to keep adding flavor to life, it mattered. And that's something I want to say to you from one man to another. Heat doesn't come from youth. It comes from attention, from care, from choosing, even in your 60s or 70s, to keep seasoning the days you have. Chili peppers aren't about bravado. They're about blood flow, vitality, and keeping that inner fire warm. These first three fruits, beets, pomegranates, and peppers, might not sound like the pillars of masculinity. But in the body of an aging man, they act like quiet champions. They repair, they restore, they remind your blood vessels how to expand again, how to soften, how to deliver life where it's needed most. What happens when you begin to support your circulation in this way? You move better, think clearer, sleep deeper. And yes, you begin to reawaken the part of yourself that still craves connection, still longs to feel seen, touched, and desired. The part that never really went away, it just got quieter when your body started slowing down. And this is where we'll pause for now. There's one more fruit I want to share with you. It's quiet, unassuming, and powerful in ways you might not expect. But we'll get to that shortly. What I want you to carry with you in this moment is simple. Your body is still capable of change, of growth, of return. The fire hasn't gone out, it's just waiting for breath, for fuel, for a little attention in the right places. You're not broken, and you're not alone. Let me take you now to the fourth and final fruit, though really it's a family of fruits. Small, dark, often overlooked, and packed with more strength than they're given credit for. Berries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries. These quiet companions of summer carry within them a kind of subtle power that speaks directly to the aging male body. On the surface, they're sweet, simple, but inside, they're rich in flavonoids, specifically anthocyanins and quercetin, that help your blood vessels stay flexible, responsive, and youthful. These compounds fight inflammation, reduce arterial stiffness, and improve the health of your endothelium, the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels, where so much of your vascular health is decided. When your arteries stay flexible, your blood pressure lowers, your risk of cardiovascular events drops, and yes, your ability to achieve and sustain erections improves. It's not a theory. It's measurable biology. I remember a man from Maine, a retired farmer named Ellis. He lived on a small plot of land surrounded by wild blueberry bushes that he'd been tending since his 20s. He wasn't a man of many words, kept to himself mostly. But one morning, during our appointment, he looked me in the eye and said, "I still feel love the way I did when I was young. It just sits in a different place now." When I asked him about his diet, he smiled and said, "I eat what grows. These berries, they keep me alive, in more ways than one." There was wisdom in that simplicity. These fruits weren't part of a fad or a trend for him. They were a ritual, a way of feeding the vessel that carried his memories, his pain, his joy, and yes, his desire to stay connected, both to himself and the woman he still called my bride. After 40 years of marriage, there's something deeply dignifying about giving your body what it needs, especially when it's not glamorous, when no one's watching, when it's just you, standing in the kitchen, reaching for a handful of something that reminds you, you still matter. And that's really what all of this comes down to. Not just circulation, not just intimacy, but identity. The quiet rediscovery of who you are beneath the layers of age, diagnosis, fatigue, and the 1,000 ways life has tried to convince you to settle. This isn't about chasing youth. That's a game with no real winners. This is about presence. Reclaiming your place in your own life, your own body, your own bed. When blood flows, everything changes. Your brain lights up, your legs feel steadier. Your heart beats with more rhythm and less strain. And somewhere beneath the surface, something old and strong and deeply male begins to stir again. Not aggression, not dominance, but aliveness. I've watched it happen too many times to call it coincidence. A man in his 70s starts eating deliberately. Rich colors, fresh produce, clean proteins, and within a few weeks, his voice changes. His eyes brighten. He carries himself differently, not like he's trying to prove anything, but like he finally believes he still has something worth protecting. This transformation is not just physical, it's deeply emotional. I've seen it unfold in the way men start talking to their partners again, the way they stop apologizing for the distance and start bridging it. Slowly, with touch, with words, with presence. I've seen them begin to want again, not just sexually, but spiritually, to dream, to laugh without effort, to rise without wincing. If you've made it this far in the video, you probably feel something stirring in you too. Maybe it's hope, maybe it's a quiet ache, maybe it's just curiosity. But whatever brought you here, know this. It wasn't weakness, it was strength. Strength to look inward. Strength to say, there has to be more than this. And there is. I'm not here to sell you a miracle. I'm not promising that 4 fruits will undo 4 decades of habits or hardship. But what I am saying, with the full weight of my medical training and the thousands of hours I've spent with men like you, is this. Your body is listening. And when you nourish it with the right things, simple, powerful, natural things, it begins to respond. Quietly at first. Then, unmistakably. It starts with better mornings, fewer headaches, less swelling in your feet, a little more energy to go for that walk. Then perhaps a night where your body surprises you, reminds you that it still remembers how to rise, how to meet your partner, how to feel like a man not just in name, but in spirit. And intimacy? That comes back too. Not always in the same shape or frequency, but often with more depth, more tenderness. Because now it's layered with gratitude, with presence, with the kind of attention that only comes when you've earned every scar and still choose to show up anyway. I know what society tells you, that aging is a slow unraveling, that your best days are behind you, that wanting closeness, desire, or connection at your age is somehow indulgent or unnecessary. But let me tell you the truth, they're wrong. The need for touch, for love, for vitality, it doesn't leave you because your hair thins or your joints stiffen. Those needs remain. What changes is how you feed them, not with shortcuts, not with shame, but with understanding, attention, and yes, sometimes with a handful of berries or a glass of beet juice in the morning. It's not the food itself, it's the choice. The act of standing at that intersection of decline and decision and choosing to support your body instead of surrendering to it. And you're not alone in this. Every day I hear from men who are choosing, often quietly, to return to themselves, to take back their strength, to eat differently, move more, sleep better, and reconnect with their partners, not through pressure, but through presence. You can do this too. So what now? Maybe tomorrow you start small. Add a few berries to your breakfast, toss some roasted beets into your lunch. Pour a small glass of pomegranate juice in the evening. Sprinkle some chili flakes on your stew, not as punishment, not as a gimmick, but as an offering to yourself, to your partner, to the man you still are beneath the noise of age and illness. Let these changes be a signal, not just to your heart and your blood vessels, but to your whole self, that you're still here, still capable, still worthy of intimacy, vitality, and connection. And if you're feeling the weight of years, of silence, of all the times you didn't know how to talk about what was changing, please, hear this. You don't have to walk this road alone. There are thousands of men watching this right now who feel exactly like you do, who are quietly trying to find their way back to a sense of strength and closeness. So if this message spoke to something in you, type 1 in the comments, not as a signal of arrival, but of commitment, of readiness, of solidarity. And if you've tried any of these fruits or have your own rituals or insights about how to keep intimacy alive after 60, I'd be honored if you shared them below. Because the truth is, we learn best from each other. From the stories of those who have walked this path before us, I'm Dr. Michael Hanks. Thank you for letting me walk this road with you today.